So, dude, the last time that we got to spend any like significant time together, we were
Yeah.
playing football.
Yeah.
You were what, 220 pounds?
Yeah, I think yeah, probably around that 220,
How
223 or
so
something.
what was the gateway drug that got you into ultras?
Yeah, I get asked this all the time, but it's I actually so Cameron Haynes, he's a social media influencer, bow hunter. I never like really followed him much, but then one day I just came across his Instagram story and it was a picture of it looked familiar and I didn't know what it was. And it said, let's go run 100 miles in this mountain range in Montana. And I was like, what? And I had never heard of it. I was like shook. And I could tell it was the crazy mountains between Big Timber and Livingston. And I was just like, there's no way. So then I started looking at his profile and I noticed that he ran a lot. And I was like, okay. And just looked at trail running and then I Googled it right away. And I Googled Crazy Mountain 100 and it came up. And sure enough, there's a 100-mile race in Montana. And I was like, okay, let's let's just look more into this because I was like, there's no way that somebody's running 100 miles, and especially in the crazy mountains, you know?
Right.
And yeah, I just kind of fell down the rabbit hole of like looking into it that day, and then I noticed that like there's a link that you can like put the tracker number in, and so all the runners have a tracker, and you can track them like on a GPS during the whole length of the race.
Okay.
And so I went to that link and I saw several runners, like I forget 100 or 120 or something. And I could see like exactly where they were going from the start. And I was like amazed, I was like, oh my gosh, and it showed the route so I could see like where they were going. And I remember going to bed that night and I couldn't like stop watching it. And I couldn't believe the fact that I was going to go to bed and these guys were out here running all day from 6 a.m. and then all through the night, and I'd be going to sleep and I'd wake up the next morning and they would still be going. Like I just couldn't fathom that. And so, yeah, that's the last thing I looked at when I went to bed that night. And then first thing I looked at, like first thing in the morning was where are they at? Like have they gone anywhere? And of course, I think probably like the top 3 runners or something had already finished at that point. So to put them around 22, 24 hours or something. And so, yeah, I was just amazed. And so I just kind of thought about it like that same morning. And I told Trinity, I'm going to do this someday, my wife, Trinity. And she was like, yeah, right. It's just like everybody. Yeah. I mean, it's just like, yeah, whatever. You don't even run at this point. Like, why would you think about running 100 miles? And yeah, I put my running shoes on and went for a mile run and died. And I was like, there's no way that I can do this. But then, I just kind of started YouTubing, looking things up on Google, and noticed that that's kind of like how everybody starts. It's always, almost every story you hear, it's like, I started running 1 mile and then it turned into 2, 5, and then just kind of carried on. And so I just stayed consistent with it. And every morning I just went for a little run and kind of increased my mileage as the weeks went on, and got to the point where I signed up for a 50K. So I went to a 10K, and so the Crazy Mountain was the end of July.
Okay. So you're watching this right after you got done playing football. So you're not
I would have
really
just
running
graduated.
much.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it was like I was doing a lot more lifting, obviously, and just like maybe a 3-mile run, maybe a couple times a month.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it was like no distance running. I kind of picked it up in 2022, but again, it was not like a consistent like distance running. It was like I'm gonna go out and do this like 2-mile jog, and it'd just be so fast, and I'd just kill myself with it.
Mm-hmm.
But then, so I was still pretty heavy. I mean, at that point, I was probably 220, 225 or so. And I had the crappiest running shoes, probably shoes that I've had for years. And I just kept wearing them. And then eventually I like kind of hurt my feet. And I was like, well, if I'm going to run serious, I may as well invest in myself and the equipment. And so I went and bought a pair of running shoes. I didn't even know what I was looking for. I had to ask the guy, like, well, what do you recommend?
Right,
yeah.
yeah.
And he gave me some good advice, and he gave me some decent running shoes. And I wore the heck out of those, and then just stayed consistent with it, really, and it's, everybody always asks like, how would you recommend I start or something? It's like, just go do it. It's like, it's just like the same with everything. I mean, it's just so, there's always like pros and cons, and you can always think about, like what if, but if you just like stay consistent with it, eventually you can get there. Because I remember, so there's a thing in like the endurance world, it's like heart rate zones. And so there's like 1 through 5.
Mm-hmm.
And you train at different zones based off your age. And there's like formulas you can do. And you can also go into a lab and actually get it like scientifically done. And so when I was falling into the endurance world, I came across that, and I manually calculated what my zones would be. But at that point, it was like, why am I even training zones? Like, I need to just run. You know, I just need to get some mileage on my feet. And obviously, very slow pace, very high heart rate. And I just kind of like focused on that, like trying to keep it easy. So if you hear like an easy run, it's not necessarily it should feel easy, but it's like a lot of times they're talking about like where their heart rate's sitting. So like if you look at like a marathon runner that's super fit, they'll have like a heart rate of like 130, but they can be pushing like 6-minute miles. So like that's super fast for somebody, especially just starting out. So I think when I started, I was running like 11 and a half minute miles, but my heart rate was like 170, 160. So it was like, I was super unfit. And that's like kind of how you can tell like who's fit, you know?
Okay.
You can look at somebody and you like, yeah, you could look fit or whatever. But endurance wise, it's definitely like an aerobic base and where your heart rate's sitting and at what levels of effort. And there's just so much into it. You can get like so far into it, but it's also, you know, at some point you just need to run and just stay consistent with it.
Right.
Just like you know, like you could Google how to set up a podcast, you know, like there's so many different perspectives on how to do a podcast, but the only way you actually know is by doing it.
For sure. Yeah. I want to go to that first night where you found like Cam Hanes, you saw what they were doing. What was going through your mind when you were watching the trackers? You'd said that it's like that crazy reality of they're still going to be running when I wake up, but did your brain go immediately to this is something that I'm going to do, or was it just an interest? Like, why do you feel like you got hooked in that moment?
Yeah, honestly, I think because I always, like, between where I grew up in Billings, you drove past that mountain range all the time. And I always remember looking at them like, that's a gnarly mountain range. And it's so remote, like it's on its own island and it's like all above tree line. So like it's super, you know, steep and rocky, a lot of shale. And, yeah, to be honest, I don't know. I mean, at that point I was graduated, you know, from college. And so I went 5 years in college, got my master's in my undergrad. And then I was working in public accounting and I was studying for my CPA exams. And so I think it was honestly like one side was going to be competitive, but then also like it gave me a different goal outside of my like professional life, say, or like my personal life. It was just like an aspiration of something I could chase that was all about me, you know, like not like in a selfish way, but it was like I didn't need a team to do that, you know. I mean, the support from family and friends helps, no doubt, especially at this point. But when you're starting out, you know, it's like all you need is a pair of shoes and just go. You know, and like I said, when you're training heart rate zones and all that, you don't need any of that. You just need to just go, you know. And I would say I think it was honestly just like an interest of like on a personal level, like, can I push myself to be like somebody else, you know? It's like, I'm not going to be a pro athlete, you know, like an NFL player, NBA player, like that's out of the picture at this point. So I guess, I don't know, because you asked that and like I've never seen, you know, everybody's seen road marathons and, you know, 10Ks and track and all that. And that never like lit a spark in me either. Like I never had any interest in doing that. And actually to this day, I've never ran a road marathon. So, you know, I've ran two 200 milers at this point, several 50Ks, 50 milers, but never ran the 26.2. So
funny.
Yeah. Or a half marathon. Like I said, I went from 10K to 50K. So never anything in between. I've done it like training runs and stuff, but never like a sanctioned event. So
how do you feel about people having a pursuit that is outside of their work, outside of their family, something that can drive them forward to something? Because it doesn't sound like you had too big of a gap between college sports and then getting into what you're into now. It's something that I find very important for people, but obviously the lens that I see it through is I decided to go the jiu-jitsu, MMA, that kind of route. Cool. And so I'm curious for you though, like, how important do you think it is for people to have something that they can chase for themselves and a pursuit that's outside of their family and their work and all that?
Yeah, I think it's pretty important important. I don't know. You can get pretty stagnant in life, and you can definitely like sit back and you can always wish for something. And like everybody, the grass is always greener on the other side. And I think there's probably a lot more people that deal with it than they talk about, just like chasing their personal goals and not really knowing what direction they want to go in life. And especially they can get like stuck down the mousetrap. They can definitely be chasing a career that they're not even passionate about, but they're just kind of doing it because that's that's the way life is, and at that point, like I always often talk to Trinity about it. It's like, why not like set a personal goal? Whether it doesn't have to be running, it doesn't have to be fitness, but like even people that read, like read so many books per month or per year or something, or listen to so many podcasts, educational podcasts, or cleaning the house, or something just so little. I just think that like setting a personal goal like that, it gives you something like outside of work, outside of other obligations, and just gives you, it's like you versus you kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And it's like you can grow so much, and it gives you kind of like an excitement every day, because you can get so bored just going to work, and like doing the same tasks every day. So I always try to like kind of push that on people, and they're always like, well, no, I don't care about running. It's like, well, that's not, you don't have to go run. Like
Right.
that's just what I chose to chase a personal goal. But to answer your question, I just think that it's important to have a personal goal that you're chasing, and it doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's kind of challenging.
Mm-hmm. What were some of the things that you noticed as you started to build some of that excitement, where like you are waking up in the mornings, you start thinking about like the 5Ks, the 10Ks, and doing all that stuff? What were some of the benefits that you noticed in your own life as far as like having a new rabbit to chase?
Yeah, I mean, I would say when I started into the sport, I got pretty selfish about it. Like obviously I was engaged and had friends everywhere here, but I don't know, I kind of put them on the back burner. And I always like was present at work, but like I really wasn't like present, like I was one of those guys who just showed up to get my paycheck and do my job and then leave. But I definitely, if I could look back, I don't know if I regret doing it, because I wouldn't, be at the point where I am now, but I was selfish about it for sure. And I think, it was like every day I was like going to bed early. I was grumpy, like I was hungry, yeah, I was just doing everything wrong. I wasn't eating enough. I wasn't recovering enough and whatnot. And I think I was just like chasing like the goal, like every morning I just look forward to that every morning. Like, I gotta get my run in, to get the runner's high and get the endorphins released. But then if I didn't do that, like I was off the walls crabby and like just anxious, and it's still like that to this point. But I think I've worked on like handling, especially like today. Like I just ran 32 miles yesterday and I haven't ran today.
Yeah.
And like I feel like itchy about it, but like I know it's only important to let yourself recover, and you might feel fine. Like I told you, I feel fine, but your body's definitely still recovering.
Okay.
So yeah, I just think that, waking up every morning and just like chasing the excitement, it kind of got, I don't know, kind of addicting. It's still obviously addicting to this point, but it's somewhat healthy addiction, I guess,
sure.
but
there are worse.
yeah, definitely. But I think it got kind of in the way of personal life, and then friendships for sure, and family and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's kind of actually gotten to the point where like a lot of my family, like my brother specifically, people say like, what's your brother up to these days? And instantly his only statement is, oh, he's probably out catching miles. It's like everybody just knows me to this point of, I'm probably not going to go out and hang out with you unless I'm running miles or something. It's like not the healthiest thing, but I think people have kind of adapted around that and just know that like this is my passion, and they're pretty supportive of it at this point.
Was there anything when you were going through that phase where it was like, I'm so excited about running in the morning that everything else is kind of being sacrificed? Is there a point for you that you feel like you like came to grips with that and was like, okay, I need to have a healthy relationship with this? Or did it just kind of like find its way to equilibrium somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of ebbs and flows. Just like everything, it's all seasonal, and it's definitely important to take it seasonally. Like I said, when I first started running, it's it was in July, but then I just carried it through because I signed up for a 50K, which was in January. So I trained like all through winter. But most people, especially up north, take the winter off. I mean, they're still cross training and like riding bikes, going to the gym and stuff, strength training, and they're still running, just not to a high level. And so I was like just chasing miles in the middle of winter when everybody else should have been taking off season.
Still outside, still doing the thing?
Yeah, doing outside. So at that point, I didn't do much treadmill running. Just I didn't know any different, I guess. I was just going to do what I saw on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that. But then I did the 50K, and I was kind of just like, well, at the point, I was like, I'm not doing that ever again.
Yeah.
And so it was tax season at that point. So it got busy at work, and I just kind of cut back. But I was still like crabby. I was just always tired because I was still waking up and doing it. I was going to the gym a lot more, and I was treadmill running because at that point it was like February, so it was pretty cold.
So this is after the race?
Yeah,
okay.
My very first one. But then I don't know. I got right back into it, and I was still crabby. I would say it was probably for the first year. I was
okay.
It was probably a straight year of just like selfish, like putting everything else on the back burner and whatnot. But then right around probably this time last year is where I kind of had a shift of like, I don't know, I'm tired of putting everything off, you know, and just like sticking selfishly to myself. But then like I also wanted to be present with everybody else, you know, like if somebody said, you know, are you going to go to my niece's basketball game, let's say, or something, I used to probably say, no, I got to run or something. As long as my run's done, I'll go and I'll try to fit it in. But now, I mean, it's just, I try to adapt it. So like I try to, okay, if I go to this and I miss this run, I can make up for it here. You know, it's just kind of a flexible schedule with it. And I'm not a pro, so it's not like it's not life or death, you know. It's not like I'm on a contract with anybody, so it's not anything monetary or anything. But it's I think I just like hold myself to a standard at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I try to just be flexible, and like last year I did a few ultra races, but I maintained steady mileage, so not very like 45 miles a week, which is not very much for running ultras, but it was enough to like maintain fitness and whatnot. And I was just doing something every weekend, you know, whether it was weddings, bachelor parties, friends, like family. It was just always like, I think last year it was almost every weekend we were gone doing something.
Okay.
And so I just accepted that, and I just didn't like have any races during the summer. I tried to volunteer at races and like help buddies out and stuff like that. And so this year it was kind of like okay, so I did that. I was super serious and selfish about it my first year. My second year I was like giving back, and I was trying to be more present in other parts of my life. But this year, I guess kind of the challenge is just to do both, you know, try to work both of them in to where I'm selfishly doing my personal goal, but then I'm also being adaptable to all the changes in life and attend family and friends and being right here, you know, I probably would have been like pretty anxious 2 years ago when I first started running, like, no, I can't, I got to run or something, you know, be at the gym or in the sauna or doing something. So, this year I got a lot of races scheduled, but it's not like, I don't know. I'm just trying to like, if I get the good training in for it, I get good training in. And if I don't, you know, there's going to be other life events in the way of it, I guess.
Okay.
So
how did your mindset shift, A, in your personal life, and then B, towards running during that second year when you kind of like swung the pendulum the other way, and you were taking a little bit more time to be present in the stuff outside of running?
Yeah, I almost gave it up. I remember I texted one of my good buddies back home, and I was like, I think I'm done running. I'm just not enjoying it anymore. And I think a big part of that was, again, I wasn't eating enough, and you forget like how many calories you're burning by doing all this. And you want to like obviously look super fit, but then there's like one, like eating for performance and eating for look, and you're not a bodybuilder, so you shouldn't be eating for look, you know, you should be eating for performance. And so I think that was a big shift for me. It was like just trying to figure out how much I need to eat and just kind of scarfing myself, you know. Really? I'm always hungry. I mean, like I could eat all the time, but I think that helped me. But then it was just honestly like I almost just gave it up. I was just super kind of in my own hole. I would say, I don't know what depression is, but I would say I was close to it. You know,
Really?
like just,
And this is during that second year or during the
yeah.
first
So this
year?
was last year. Like I
Okay.
had nothing to be upset about or depressed about per se, but it was just like, I don't know. I think I didn't, like I said, I wasn't racing, so I didn't have anything to look forward to. I knew all my other buddies were doing it, and I could see it on social media. Like everybody's, you know, chasing their goals and whatnot, and I just like never really set myself one. And so I just kind of felt stagnant and just like it was selfish, you know. It was probably something to be, it was something stupid to be like so personal about, but it was just like what's kind of the excitement in my day to day, you know? Like
Right.
I'm just kind of going through the motions. And so, yeah, the shift, it was definitely, it was a change just because, like, I talked to Trinity about it, and she was kind of making me aware of, you know, this is what I see, you know, and she was with me every day. So that helped big time and just kind of opened my eyes. And I think that, yeah, I just think that it kind of gave me the other picture, you know, of why I'm really doing what I'm doing, and just like think outside the box with it, you know?
Yeah. So once you identify that it was like, okay, I'm probably not recovering how I should, I'm not getting enough food in and all that kind of stuff. What were some of the changes that you made, and then what did you feel on the back end of that? Because it seems like walking in here today, you're smiling,
Yeah,
you're like,
yeah.
you know, you haven't hit your run yet and
Yeah,
stuff. So
that's what I was saying. I was telling Trinity this morning, like I remember after my first 50K, it was tough, but it wasn't like it wasn't, yesterday's run wasn't as, I guess it wasn't hard. It was a 50K and it was 4,000, like probably about 4,500 feet of climbing. So it was a decent amount of vert, but my very first 50K was less vert, same mileage, and probably the same like weather.
okay,
And it was in January too, so it was still winter. And I remember that night I couldn't even hardly walk, and then the next morning I was like just a stiff board, you know, like kind of waddle walking. But last night I was fine, you know, like I ran my race, hung out at the race, watched some buddies finish, and then drove back to Billings. And then this morning I just jumped out of bed.
Yeah.
Like I could honestly go run right now.
yeah,
But I mean, to me that was like, so many people see that and they're like, well, you just ran 100 miles. Like 32 is nothing. It's like 32 miles is still a long ways, you know? And it's like all the consistent past 2.5 years of just training and just, you know, doing all the work. I guess the unseen work.
yeah,
You know, it's like so many, this winter especially, like so many treadmill runs in the early morning. You know, it's dark, it's cold. I had a sweatsuit on with a heater directly on me, just trying to train for the heat for Hawaii.
dang,
And yeah, just like so much unseen work that it's like, yeah, I mean, like somebody's like, oh, you run 100 miles. So of course you're not going to be sore. But to me, it's, you know, it's kind of that's the product of all the work that's gone into it.
for sure.
So,
I'm really curious about like the behind the scenes work that isn't running, right? Like, so the things that you have to do for your sleep schedule, the changes that you made for your nutrition once you really started putting big mileage in. Talk to me about where you started with that stuff as far as like your awareness of it. Sounds like you really got into like the heart rate zones and stuff really early. But what were some of the things outside of just the running itself, whether it was nutrition, sleep, routine, that you really have like dialed in over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, just like I know myself well enough at this point where I don't really like track my heart rate necessarily, but like I know what kind of effort level I'm going for and what I'm putting out. And so like say yesterday was, you know, I was pushing it harder than I would just out on a long run. And so obviously I feel good right now, but I know I pushed a higher level. My body was, you know, exerting a lot more energy. And so I'm going to require more recovery. And so I just try to like kind of dial in on all the other aspects. I never sleep very well. And especially after races, like I have terrible sleep, and it's just kind of like dead legs, and you're kind of jazzed, you know, your endorphins are going, and your body's just kind of out of whack. But like tonight, like especially is important to like get quality sleep. You know, today is important to get quality nutrition, because yesterday when you're pushing hard like that, you're just throwing back like gels and like sugar and just like pretty nasty stuff that's probably not the best for you, but you're just burning through it. You know, your body needs it. So today is like quality, any kind of quality nutrition. There's a sauna back home that I'll go into and just chill. The heat, it just, provides more blood flow and just puts it probably in some of your spots that you wouldn't get it. I'll put my legs up, on a wall for 10 minutes. I'm not, I should be, but I'm not like big into the stretching thing.
Yeah.
I've gotten more into it, but I don't know. Before the Hawaii race, I actually rolled my ankle pretty bad the 2 weeks before it, and I blame it on stretching. And as crazy as that sounds, I hadn't stretched like my whole training block, and then like that night or the night before I got hurt, I was like doing like some mad stretches. Like I'm getting pretty tight. I need to stretch. And then that morning before the run, I stretched and I went out and got hurt. So I was like, I'm not doing that again.
Never stretching
Yeah,
again.
I'm never stretching again. And it's important probably to do that, but just getting like movement in, the worst thing you could do is sit and be stiff.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just dialing in sleep, nutrition, and like, so I probably won't run tomorrow either. I could, but there's really no point. I'm not like training for a race right now. But then like I'll run Tuesday, but I'll see how my sleep goes. Maybe I'll get something in tomorrow. And then if not, I'll definitely get something in on Tuesday. But if I don't go for a run tomorrow, it's going to the gym and just getting movement. And it's that, with kettlebells, just, it's not like I'm in there throwing weights around like,
right.
How you and I used to do
Yeah.
when we were training for football, but it was like, it's just more movement, like lower body movement and upper body strength, and just trying to focus on different muscles that you might not work elsewhere. So, I think people ask me that, like, how do you know you're recovered? And I think it's just, you're kind of like more in tune with your body. And just, I know, like I can tell when walking upstairs, like even that, like yesterday, I felt fine, but walking upstairs, like I could feel like a little bit less energy, and my heart rate, I could kind of feel my heart beating a little bit. Like obviously that shouldn't happen. So there's more stress on me right now. And so, yeah. And then I also think that it's super important, like in work, or in personal life, like what kind of stress are you in, and what, like what different environments you're in. And I think that plays a huge role, especially, when you're just trying to get quality recovery, because the less stress you can put on your body, the faster you'll recover. So.
For sure. What about when you're doing your kind of like more routine, whether it's your 45-mile weeks just to stay like kind of at a baseline, or if you are in training, are you very do you have a very like dialed in routine for how you do those things when it comes to some of that stuff outside of running? Or is your approach a lot of just like, I kind of do what my body feels like it needs?
Yeah, no, I mean, on paper, I don't have a coach. I have had a coach before, but it's hard for me to justify having a coach, just because exactly this conversation, they don't know, they're not me. They don't know like what kind of recovery I'm doing or how my body feels. Like only I know that. And so I think the coach is a good thing for like accountability and kind of setting up your weekly plan and like your training block and stuff. But I think this is all kind of an experiment with myself. And so I kind of enjoy that aspect of, okay, well, this worked for this, this race, but this didn't work. So like, what can we change for the next one? So it's kind of just a self experiment. And so during, like on paper, I guess, during a training block, it would be like, say like a rest day on Monday, and then easy run on Tuesday. Mileage wise, it just kind of depends on where I'm at in the training. But and then Wednesday would be like more like a faster heart rate. You're pushing yourself harder. And then Thursday would be kind of a recovery run, a little slower than like an easy run on Tuesday. And then Friday, it just kind of depends. Kind of depends on what I have planned for the weekend, just because I don't want to kill myself on a Friday if I have like 2 back-to-back long runs on the weekend. But then, Saturday would be a long run, and then Sunday would either be another long run or like a mid-long run. And again, it just kind of depends on where you're at as far as the training.
Okay. Yeah.
Like if your race is 3 weeks away, you're kind of at a peak training. Some people are like lower mileage at that point, like kind of going through recovery phase, but I don't think I've ever done a 3-week taper. So like 3 weeks out, it'd be like high mileage on Saturday, high mileage on Sunday, not really resting, you know, Monday through or Tuesday through Friday. So when it's like that, it's harder to like want to go do a big speed workout or like really push yourself, because obviously you have way longer recovery at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll just kind of get yourself into a hole doing that.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, it like I said, it just depends. Like say I have a 55K scheduled for like the middle of April.
Okay.
So that's
a month and a half
yeah,
out.
a month and a half. I just did this 50K. So like I'm at the point now, like especially coming off the 100 miler, like I could definitely just like maintain decent mileage. I don't necessarily have to have a training block, but if I'm chasing a goal, like if I want to run that fast, I need to like obviously focus on speed, you know, and pushing those efforts, and that's going to require a lot more recovery. So training for that's going to look a lot different than training for the crazy 100 or Hurt
Right.
100. So
Okay. So talk to me a little bit about the mental discipline and maybe like your self-talk, I guess,
yeah,
when it comes to doing that, because it seems like every morning, and really I would imagine during the runs too,
Mhm.
when you're doing an individual sport where you don't have the coach for the accountability, you don't have people checking in on you. If you're running by yourself, there's a lot of opportunity there to just say, fuck it.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
So what's that
funny.
like?
It's funny you asked that, because yesterday during the race, you know, I was thinking, man, this sucks from the get go. You know, I could just feel I didn't have like quite the bounce in my legs as I was hoping, but it's all relative. You know, it's like this sucks for me, but like this could be super easy for somebody else, or vice versa. You know, like this sucks, but I'm not laying in a hospital bed, you know, where I can't walk, or I'm not at home bedridden because I can't walk, or paralyzed or something. So I'm choosing to make myself suffer, I guess.
Right.
And I often think about that, because it's like you, especially running an ultra, when you're out there for, even if it's a 50K. So if you're out there for 4 or 5 hours, or if you're out there for a 100 miler for 30 plus hours, it's like, obviously you have nothing but time to think. and like you said, it's just you and you and your own thoughts. And it's so easy to like, I would say it's not easy to quit, but it is easy to quit. Like, I'm just going to be done at the next aid station. Somebody can come pick me up, or I could walk it out and just be done.
Mm-hmm.
But I always reflect back on like those people that can't, you know, and I've always tried to like kind of make that kind of my purpose, is like doing it for those who can't. And so at the Hurt 100, they had a sign there that says like, why hurt? Like it says like, why hurt, or why do you hurt, or why do you choose to hurt, or something. And I wrote that to do it for those who can't. And it's honestly because, like, you know, I have an aunt that's suffering from cancer, and she's bedridden right now in hospice. And my dad, he's gone through some like blood cancer. And so he's he's kind of numb in his feet, and it's hard for him to walk, or people that are passed away, you know, like that didn't get to choose to not live and whatnot. And so it's like, they didn't get to choose to do that, you know, and I'm out here choosing to do this,
right,
and doing this to myself. So if they can't do it, I can do it to myself, and I can push through it. And so that honestly always kind of lights a spark to me. And it's, you can get in such a deep hole and like kind of feel bad for yourself, but then, you know, when you dig yourself out of it, you just have to kind of like self-talk and like think about all the positive, you know. And if you sit there and dwell on the negative, you will definitely get yourself in a hole, and you're not getting out of it. It's like so hard to get out of a hole, especially when it's just you and yourself.
Right.
You know?
What does that look like for you on the mornings where like you wake up and whether it's sore, tired, you know, whatever the thing is that day, what's it like for you getting out and like starting a run on those days mentally? And then I also am curious what it's like when you might be in the middle of one and it's like, this is way harder than I thought it was going to be today.
No, that's a good point, because everybody's like, oh, I don't feel like going for a run, or I don't feel like going to do the laundry or clean the house or something. And it's, if you were needed to be motivated to do everything, you'd never get anything done, because motivation is like 1%, you know, like you're hardly ever actually motivated. And so when the work that it takes, and you know, everything that you learn doing it, is when you don't want to do it. And there's so many mornings, I would say way more so than not, that it's just like, I don't want to do this, you know. And it's especially if I put my run off to the afternoon, like,
yeah,
I'm not going to do it in the morning. Like I'll just use it as my recovery, or read a book or something, drink my coffee, and then I'll go to work, and I'll get it done afterwards. And every time I'm like, why did I do this? Why did I not do it in the morning? And I was listening actually to a podcast with Nick Bear, and he said, I've never regretted a workout that I've done. I've only regretted not doing one. And I always think about that. Like when it's like, should I or should I not? I'm always like, well, I've never regretted one. I've actually gone and done. And so just like, especially in the wintertime, it's hard. It's, dark and snowy. It's cold. Like, of course I don't want to do it, but it's always like, well, what's the end goal? Like, what am I going to get out of this, and like, how do I feel afterwards? So it's definitely, and in the middle of runs, you'll be like on a super high, and then maybe you'll be low on calories or dehydrated or just tired, and then you get in that rut, like you just said, and then in the middle of the run, you're like, how do I get myself out of this? And if you want to run an ultra, you're going to run into that. So it's like, just like kind of mentally preparing yourself for all the adversity. And I try to take it out of like running perspective and put it like more into life. Like, I don't have kids yet, but someday I'm going to have kids running around, and it's like, there's going to be so many other obligations, and like the kids are going to be just another thing. But then it's like, I know personally, like if I could get through such a simple task, like me versus me, I can definitely get through anything else. So it kind of gives me a level of self-confidence that I probably wouldn't get elsewhere. And I just think, like I said, doing things when you're not motivated is like, you'll be sitting on your butt your whole life, because you're only motivated for so long. And if that's what you're looking for, like, good luck. You're not going to get anywhere. So it's, it's no different than you. Like, if you just like were motivated to set this podcast up, or, your media production and whatnot, you could be motivated one day, and then the next day just be like, this sucks, I'm not doing this. And then it would never get done. You just go back and forth all the time. So
yeah. I think that there's I come back to it all the time, and quite frankly, most of the time it is with the gym, where I say that there's motivation days and there's discipline days.
Exactly.
And like motivation days can be a lot harder to come by, and it doesn't seem like there's a real predictable way to find that motivation. It just kind of shows up when it wants to. But that's kind of like my little mantra is like, some days I'll wake up and do that big deep breath and just be like, ugh.
Yeah.
And be like, well, today's a discipline day. And just like you said, I've never heard that saying before, that I've never regretted a workout that I did, only the ones that I didn't do. But it's exactly, I mean, on all of those discipline days, the thing that gets me to go, fuck it, it's a discipline day, I'm gonna go, is knowing that in an hour and a half I'm gonna be driving home with a smile on my face, going like, thank goodness.
Exactly. No, and that's always the thing. Like, if you put it into a time perspective, it's like, I'm gonna bring it back to running. Like, oh, I gotta go run for 7 miles, 8 miles. Like, depends on how fast you run. That could be an hour, that could be 2 hours or whatever. But instead of like looking at it as, oh, I gotta go do this, like for this distance, just go time, like that's only an hour out of my 24 hours. That's only an hour out of my day. It's not that long. So it's like, if you put things like in a time perspective, it changes everything. And like, if you want to go to the gym, you don't have to go to the gym for 2 hours. You could be there for 30 minutes and be just as productive as you can for 2 hours. So if you put things in time and you kind of prioritize things and schedule things, you can do anything, you can stack so much more in your day.
Oh, yeah. One of the goofiest things that I did when I went through a phase when I was younger, where I had a really big, I was like irking myself because I was just getting lazy about like the little shit. I was like staying on top of the bigger stuff, but the little stuff, like doing laundry or like doing the dishes and like little stuff where I was just like, just could not be bothered to do it. It started bothering me about myself. So what I started doing was on my phone, I would just take out my like the stopwatch app and I would time myself doing it. And then afterwards I would be like, it took me 47 seconds to do the dishes.
Exactly.
But I've been walking around for 2 days being like, I have to like, exactly. And so it helped me because like, once I got those like funny little like metrics on how long something actually took, it almost made it seem like a smaller task the next time around. So I'm like, bro,
no doubt,
quit being weird about it.
It's 40 seconds.
Exactly. Exactly.
No, I think that's like a super important thing, because people think, oh, you're so OCD. Like, why would you time yourself doing that? It's like, that's just like kind of prioritizing yourself and just like taking a practice, it's like kind of just like self-evaluating yourself and then putting it into perspective, like it's the same thing like folding laundry. I swear I'm the worst at folding laundry. I could let it sit in a basket for like 3 days, but then once I actually do it, takes like 5 minutes. And
Right.
it's like, wow, that really wasn't that long. Why did I not do that when
For
I first
sure.
came out of the dryer?
For sure.
Especially when I'm like searching for my clothes. It's like
Yeah.
with my running stuff, I'm like throwing things out. Oh, I'll just rewear my stuff. You know, it's,
And then you get to that phase where it's like, well, it does look crazy, but I know where everything is. Like, I know that
Yeah,
weird little pile that
exactly.
these things are
Trinity
clean.
always harps on me about
Yeah.
it, and I'm like, I know where my clothes are.
Yeah.
I know where certain things are, even if it's not put where it should be. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's a good point. That's
My hack for laundry is I'll dump the entire thing out on the bed, and then I'll pre-sort everything before I fold anything. So like all the shirts will be here,
yeah,
like
I'm right
all
there
the
with
stuff.
you.
Yeah, dude. And once I got that down, I was like, oh, this is so much better.
Yeah.
And I think selfishly, my ego was like, we've got the best laundry system
Yeah,
of all
right.
time.
And there's nothing better than like throwing the socks and underwear in the same pile and
Yeah.
then like matching the socks out.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
so satisfying to see such a mess and then turn it into
Got a little
turn it
treat at
into-
the end.
Yeah, that's so corny,
I know.
But it's just like that, It's like so many like little things that people can do that they overlook that can just be life changing to people, because you could sit there and be like people that are like out of shape or whatnot. It's you could sit there and think, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't want, like, if I just went out for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and then
Mhm.
just, slowly made it 20 minutes, 30 minutes, then you look at it as like, oh, I only have to go out there for 30 minutes. And then what am I going to do the rest of my day?
Right.
But as long as I get that done, everything else is free. So,
I think a lot of it comes down to feedback loops too, that, like it's easy to say that momentum is one of the easiest things to like continue to push you forward towards something.
mhm.
But what I think momentum looks like on like a granular level is that when you walk past the dishes, every single time that you do it and you like roll your eyes and you don't do them, you set yourself down this negative feedback loop where it's like, damn it, I left the dishes yesterday. And then you're like, well, I don't really have time, or I don't want to do them. So then you leave with this negative thing of like, well, now the house isn't going to be like, it's not going to be as clean. It's not going to be. And so you set off this like this domino effect of losses where you walk away and you have this small like relief of, I didn't have to do the dishes right now, but it feels like a loss. And then the next time that you look at them, you remember that you didn't do them. And it's like this really negative train of just like feedback.
Yeah.
Whereas if you, back to your thing with the walk, if you go and you are overweight, or let's just take myself as an example. There are times where I just haven't, like, I get bad about going to the gym or whatever that is. I go on a big trip and I haven't been lifting much, or I just I'm rusty. Going to the gym during those times where it's been 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it feels like the biggest task.
Yeah.
But the positive feedback loop that sets off is like, you go to the gym and then you get those endorphins, even though you probably didn't crush that workout. And then you've got the benefits the rest of the day of like, now you're clear, you're more awake, you've got more energy. So you probably do the dishes because you've already crushed the gym. And I think that the more things that you can do to add up those little wins, you start to build momentum, not only just in that thing, but everything else like seems a lot easier.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's kind of a perspective of ultra running. It's like I said before, if I can get through this, then it's like, like I personally know, like there's not many things that I can't do, and I'm not saying I can't go out bench, the heaviest guy. Like that's not, it's obviously not realistic, but when life throws challenges, like I personally, like I've been like in these races, I've been super low. Like it was almost to the point in the Hurt 100 where I was just like gonna purposely try to hurt myself, not hurt like fit, like I was gonna try to roll my ankle or something, just to like injure myself so I didn't have to finish the race, because I was like such in a rut, like just felt bad about myself, and like you can get so low on your point at one point and then be at like an absolute high like 10 minutes later, and it's like exactly what you said, like if you can get through this, what the world's your oyster. So it's I think little things is where it starts, definitely like the 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 mile, and then just working up from there, doing the dishes or laundry or cleaning the house. Even like on like a personal level, like with friendships and whatnot, like if you always say no to go out with friends, or even just like to go have a conversation with them, or just reach out to them, if you always say no to that, then you're obviously going to keep chasing the no. It's like a losing team. Like you always lose, you're just going to keep losing.
You find a way to lose. Yeah,
you definitely do. So you got to like change the culture. So I think it's just change it. You have to take it personally, and you can't think of everything as a team, but you're kind of like a team of yourself at that point. So
That's a really interesting way to look at that. One of the things that I found in my personal life, because it's really easy for me to be disciplined about things that are like measurable, right? Like, did I go to the gym? Yes or no? Easy to measure.
Yep.
Are my weights going up? Did I do the dishes? You can look at that and see what like really easy yes or no answers. But for the longest time, I've found that I was not being disciplined at all in my personal life. Like, my girlfriend at the time, I wasn't taking the time to like she would make dinner most nights, and I would be like, well, that's just like an extra hour that I can get some work done, or I can do whatever. And it was so frustrating looking back at it, because it was like each of those would have been just like going to the gym. It takes an hour, but look at all the benefits that could have come from that, from like spending that time together, catching up on the day, talking about all these things. And so when that relationship ended, it really was a huge wake up call for me about the things in my personal life, not just inside of relationships, but like, who do I want to be as a friend? Who do I want to be as a son, as a brother, and all of these things. Yeah. And one of the small things, just like our little laundry hack that we've got, is I made a commitment to myself that every day I would either spend time talking to somebody in person that I loved, or if I didn't get a chance to, that I would call somebody.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And it's a small commitment, right? Like I'm very fortunate that much of my family is still alive. Yeah. And so they all pick up the phone when I call most days. And if not, if I get a chance to go have coffee with a friend or do something like that, it's the one thing that has had the most impact on my life, because I don't get caught as much in the kind of like the hamster wheel of just working all the time, and then working out, and then eating, going to bed, and just like kind of hermiting out a little bit. Yeah. So that's been a really interesting, I don't know, almost like kind of hack for me that's made.
I've noticed that. I've really noticed you like you travel and you go into the coffee shop. I'm jealous of it. I love coffee, and I love like, especially drinking coffee with people. And I always see you do it. And you're always like in an elegant place, like your setup. I wouldn't say it's not like you're not positioning like that, but you're definitely like structuring the life that you want to, and I can definitely see that. So.
Yeah, it's the times that I share it are definitely when I'm doing the right thing, but there's plenty of days too that are not that. So it's been, got to give a huge shout out over to Roots Garden Center and Black Dog Coffee, because
that's a great place,
dude. It's beautiful setup, and when it's 26 below in Montana and you can sit in a greenhouse and it still kind of feels like you're outside,
right?
Huge
People
win.
think you're in Florida.
Yeah, for real. So I've been trying to be disciplined with myself about asking you questions to like kind of lay a groundwork. Yeah, I got to hear some of the highlight reels and some of the moments from these races, man.
Yeah. I've talked about the Hurt a lot, just because that's the most recent long run. I mean, so there people that don't know, the Hurt 100s, the Hawaii ultra running team. That's what Hurt stands for, even though it does hurt. But it started way back. I think in the early 2000s is when it like became finally sanctioned. So it's like one of the longest or oldest 100-mile races in the world. And I would argue there's arguments that it's one of the toughest in the world too at this point. And so it's 100 miles. It's 5 loops of the same loop, but it's like more of like a T. So you kind of go, it's all climbing. It's all ascending and descending. So you're climbing up, and then you drop down to the right, climb back up, drop down to the left, come back, and drop back down where you came from. And that's one loop, and that's 20 miles. And so each loop was about 5,000 feet of vert. And put that in, I guess I can't really put that into perspective. The stair stepper in the gym, I forget how many floors is equivalent to like how many feet. But my buddy, he like posted a picture one time of, I did 200 floors or something like that. And I was like, isn't it crazy? I'm going to go do like 12. No, at that point it was like 20 times that or something over 100 miles and for 30 hours straight.
Wow.
And he's like, yeah, damn, bro. That's like way crazy. But yeah, anyways, so it was a total of about 26,500 feet of climbing, and super rooty. I mean, the terrain was just like nothing around in the mainland. I don't think anything. Maybe like in Vancouver, maybe there's some junglish trails there, but the terrain is just like you can't do it really unless you go there and do it. So. That's one thing, one of the variables that you can't really train for. just bangs up your feet. The roots, I mean, there's parts where it'll go down like almost like mid thigh. So like
Holy
you're
cow.
stepping like through these holes over roots and rocks, and you got to do it 5 times, you know? And I would say like the hardest part of that race wasn't the 100 miles. Like 100 miles is a long ways, but it's the fact that you're running the loop course 5 times. And it's like, I know exactly what section sucks.
Right.
I know exactly what's to come. And when you go up, like the only like actual like runnable section is like this 200 yards of asphalt when you're like kind of changing over the tee. And at that point, it kind of opens up in Oahu. So it's on the island of Oahu. And you can see like Waikiki out there, and like you can see the ocean and like the city lights and everything. And that was the hardest part. I mean, like you could see, like, because that's where I stayed. That's where my hotel was. So you're like 6 miles from your hotel. The beach is right there.
A lot of Mai Tais and chilling going on
like
down
everybody's out there like chilling and like having a vacation and stuff. And I'm out here like choosing to suffer, you know, like
Yeah.
I could easily just like call it quits and just go back to the beach and go back to the Airbnb and chill. But that was like, I knew that was going to be hard, but I didn't think it was going to be that hard, you know, and there's nothing really you can prepare mentally for that, you know? And so, I think that, so the climbing, the 100 miles, then the loop course, but then also the nighttime, like, right now in January, especially, it was 14 hours of darkness, like dark.
Wow.
And you're running in the jungle. So like you didn't have moonlight or like starlight. The only like lit section was that like 200-meter section, and because there was no trees there, obviously. But I mean, it was like 14 hours of like dark. And if you turn your headlamp off, like it was just like you were walking in a room with no windows, no light.
Whoa.
And so, and it was super windy that night. So like the jungle, I don't know, the jungle makes weird noises. Obviously, like every forest does, but you know, just all the different like insects that you can hear, and like the bamboo trees like slamming into each other with the wind. And like we definitely thought at some points like we better take cover, like trees are gonna fall over. And I guess it was like super windy for like the locals, so they were like actually worried about potential trees falling over. But I think that kind of helped the silence in the dark, because, you know, I was by myself. So a lot of times in a 100-miler, or basically like any 100+ mile races, you can pick up pacers. And so like that's somebody that runs with you, and they're not like saying they're not in the race, but they have like a pacer bib on, and they're just like a buddy that's running with you and just kind of keeping track of you and just kind of pushing you on and whatnot, and kind of keeping you company. But I didn't have anybody in Hawaii. So like, it was me and Trinity, my wife. So we just went there together, and I didn't have any pacers. I didn't have any like other friends. I knew 2 other people running it from Montana. So that kind of helped, but like they had pacers. And so they had like people they knew that they were running with. So I was doing this solo. First time, it was only my second 100-miler. And doing it solo with no pacer, no familiarity. And I just got deep in a hole. Like I knew that I was kind of going to be under calories because it was way hotter than I had planned. I was pushing it a little harder than I probably should have been. So I was a little behind on calories, and I could feel it coming. Like you can just know.
Yeah.
And then eventually, I think around like miles 60 to 67, I was like done. I was like so like beat up on myself and like shaking really bad because I was so like low blood sugar, no energy.
And the aid stations and stuff like that, like you don't really have the ability to get caught up.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I went to the aid station. So like it kind of happened right before the 60-mile mark, because that 60-mile mark would have been an aid station and like the main aid station. And so Trinity was there, but I remember I went there, like it was a struggle getting down to that aid station. But then I kind of sat down and I was like trying to put some calories in and just like something quick, you know, like I didn't think I was like really going to struggle that bad. But then when you leave that aid station, it's just like a straight climb up like 1,500 feet of climbing over 2 miles. So it's like just steep. And so obviously being a little behind on calories, you just get shot. Because any calories I put in at that aid station was trying to make up for the deficit.
Right.
And then I just dug myself into a deeper hole. And it got to the point where at this point, I don't remember what time it was in the night. I mean, it's been dark for at least 7 hours. So You know, it got dark around 6. So probably 6 hours. It was probably around midnight or something.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I came around the corner, and this race is kind of unique because they have medic teams that are like walking the course all day and all night. So
Okay.
you just happen to see them when you see them. And I came around the corner, and it just happened to be the medic team, and I was like, oh, I'm struggling. You know, and like everybody's struggling at this point. And I was like, no, I'm like really struggling. And I had pulls, and I was like burying my eyes and like just like sitting on the side of the trail. And they were like, just try to sit here and like take a 10-minute dirt nap. It'll help, I swear. I was like, nah, I just got to keep going. And they were kind of like, you're just kind of in this like space where like you want them to leave you alone, but like, you need their support, and you don't want to be a jerk because they're volunteering, you know?
Yeah.
And like, you don't want to say like, leave me alone, because then they'll actually leave, and then you're like still sitting there by yourself. And so they like made this little bed actually on the side of the trail for me in the dirt. And they're like, I'll time you for 10 minutes. Just lay down and take a little dirt nap. So I did it. And I wouldn't say I like completely fell asleep ever, but like at that point you're so tired, like anything helps. And that kind of gave me a little reset to get me down to the aid station where Trinity was at. And it was a super struggle to get there. Like I'm running down, and I'm running. I was like walking, probably walking most of it. And I was texting Trinity, like, I'm done, I'm dropping. Like, there's no way I'm leaving. And she was like, are you sure? I was like, positive. Like, I'm done. And I was like so pissed. Like,
and this is at 60 or so miles
yeah,
at this point?
So yeah, it would have been about 65 miles at that point. And I was done. I was like, I'm not going to keep going. I don't care. Like, I don't care enough to finish. Like, I'm just not in the right headspace. This one got me, you know, and like sometimes life gets you. And I was like, no one was going to talk me out of it. Like, I was like, never doing this running thing again. And
were
like,
you mad? Like, what was the feeling?
Yeah, I mean, it was like so hard. And that was the same point. Like, I wanted to just roll my ankle. I just wanted to get hurt just so I like had a cop out, you know?
Yeah.
And it's so hard to explain like the feeling, because like I've been tired, you know, I've been sore and whatnot, but it's just like, I don't know. It's like obviously doing something you don't want to do. It's doing that, but being like exhausted and physically sore, you know? And so I knew what was to coming. You know, I knew I still had another loop and a half of the same thing I've been doing for the last 13, 14 hours. So I was just done. I was like, I'm done. I'm not going to keep going. So I finally got to the aid station, threw my pack off, and I threw it on the ground. And I just laid down on the asphalt. And I was just like trying to fall asleep again. And Trinity's like, what can I get you? And volunteers is like, come on, get up. Let's go. Let's get out of here. And I was like, they were pissing me off because I was like, leave me alone. Like, obviously I'm not good. I don't want to get going. And so Trinity knew that I was behind on calories. I did too. I mean, I knew that I needed to eat, but nothing. I mean, at that point, my stomach's turned. Anything you put in, it's just, you know, it's not settling well.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had a cot set up in one of the tents, and they said, hey, you can take a 10-minute nap on the cot, not on the asphalt right here. So I went over there. They threw a blanket over top of me, and they tied me. I don't even know what it was, but I actually fell asleep, and they woke me up, and I was like an angry bear getting woken up.
Really?
I did not want to go. But then, Trinity had texted my family back in the mainland, and there it's 3-hour time difference. So I think it was about 1 a.m. there, so about 4 a.m. here. And Trinity kept telling me, like, call your brother. He'll talk you out of it, out of quitting. I was like, he's sleeping. Like, I know the time difference. Like, it's 4 a.m. there. Why would he be awake? And then all of a sudden, I got a text from him. He's like, what's up, bro? And I was like, not doing good. And then he called me. And I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm not going to finish this thing. And he knew, like, how important it was for me. And he's like, really? Like, are you hurt? I was like, no. And he just kind of, like, talked to me for just a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I put the phone away, and I just sat there, and then I got a text from him and got a text from my sister-in-law, and I'm thinking, why are you guys awake? You know, like, they have 3 little kids, so I thought maybe they were awake because of them. But then in the text from my brother, it was like something to the effect of, like, we don't quit. We don't leave anything unless we're hurt or unless you're physically incapable of doing it. To that effect. There was a few like inappropriate words thrown in there, like you know, like brotherly love. And I just like I read it, but I never texted him back, and I just kind of reflected on it. I was sitting in the chair, just like feeling bad for myself. Like had my head in my head in my arms, just trying to sleep, trying to do anything. And at that point, I was trying to eat mashed potatoes and like just like trying anything.
Yeah.
And I just like all of a sudden, like what he said, like resonated with me. I was like, that's a good point. Like I'm not gonna quit this. Like why? Like living with the fact that I'm gonna quit. Like if I quit this, I'm gonna quit everything. And so I like something just kind of clicked. I remember I looked down at my pack. I vividly like remember what it looked like, and I was so tired, you know. But at that point, like something just kind of flipped at me, and like just get up and go, like quit being a puss. And so I threw my pack on. That didn't say anything. Like people are like everybody in this aid station was like watching me, like amazed. I'd look up and I'd like leave me alone, kind of a thing, you know. But they were all like, dude, that guy's done for. And threw my pack on. I didn't say anything to anybody. Trinity had a cup of coffee sitting next to me. I just chugged it, just threw it back, threw my mashed potatoes in, stuffed some food in my pack, and just left. And I hugged Trinity and said, I'm going for it. And I left. And so I just all of a sudden had a complete runner's high going out of that aid station, pitch blackout. And I was like, nothing ever happened. I mean, I felt like I had just started the race. Like I literally felt like endorphins like going through my body, like fuzzies, you know? And I left the aid station. I was like, I'm doing this. And at that point, like I had the goal of finishing the race, and like I think egotistically I think it was going to be cool to like finish one of the hardest races, but I never like really like thought about like a deeper purpose of the race, or like what's my goal of this race. And so leaving that aid station, because coming down to it, Trinity's like, well, why do you want to finish? Like what's like honestly what's your goal? Like if you lose sight of that, it's obviously really easy to cop out. And I was like, I don't have one. Like I was literally like trying to come up with something that I could say, and I don't have one. But then after that, I was just like, obviously the goal is to finish. And I think at that point, like people had saw me and like the suffering I was going through, and it kind of like sparked me as like, this is why I'm finishing, like to show people you could be like in the deepest rut and get yourself out of it, and you can cross the finish line. And so I knew that I had a loop and a half left, another 35 miles to go. Like I still had a long ways to go. And yeah, something just sparked in me, dude. And I just decided I was going to go for it. And I just was trucking. Came back. The next time I could see Trinity would have been like 13 or 14 miles after that.
Mm-hmm.
And I came back to Trinity. It was around like 6 a.m., still dark out. And going on that loop, I actually ran into another runner that didn't have a pacer either.
Okay.
So obviously we were both in like I came out of my bad headspace, but I was sore. I didn't want to be out there. He didn't want to be out there. So I was like, let's just pace each other, dude.
Right.
And some ways I think that was good. In some ways I think it was bad because we were both hurting. We kind of slowed each other down.
Yeah.
Just bickering about, you know, different stupid stuff about my toes hurting, my feet hurting, legs or whatever. And then so finally I got down to the aid station with Trinity, and the race director came up and was like, do you want a pacer? I said, no. And he's like, I got somebody perfect for you. She's from Hawaii. She runs these trails all the time. She knows exactly where to go. And I was like, fine. So she came over, introduced herself, energetic as all hell. Like, dude, like the perfect person that I needed at that point. And she's like, let's get up and let's go. And she was just so cheery. I was like, it's 6 a.m. Why are you so cheery to go volunteer to run another loop out here, you know? And she took off, and I took off following her. And it was actually like one of my fastest loops. Was the final loop.
Okay.
And so it would have been like miles 80 through 100. And I just followed her, and she was so energetic, and she chatted away the whole time. And she was like, I know you're probably not listening to me, but I'm going to talk anyway. So she just like tell me stories. And it was super cool because like she was from an environment I'm not familiar with, you know, like surfing and like the jungle and like everything else that I've never like known. So like as I'm running 100 miles, I'm learning about like tides and surf and like how they read the tide and like how they know all this stuff.
Right.
And yeah, it was like honestly like a godsend. Like she dug me out of my rut right at the perfect time. Like I wasn't going to quit at that point, but it would have been a lot slower. Yeah, and we ended up passing like 5 or 6 people on that final loop and just took off like for the last 7 miles. Like we actually ran it. And it was honestly like super inspiring to know that like someone was that uplifting, you know? And like every
Right.
person we saw on the trail, so it was open to the public. They were walking, and she was like, "Hi, how you doing?" Like she knew them, you know? And they were
Right.
like, "Hey," like they were tourists, like they're not from there either, but so positive. And so every runner we passed, she was super positive about them, and yeah, it was honestly, it was cool to like know that there's other people out in the community like that are willing to just step in and help. And yeah, it was life changing for me for that race, because I was not gonna finish. But I guess the long story, or the short story to the long story, is that like what it really taught me was that like you can be such in a rut, you know, like so down on yourself. And it's like at that point I like am positive that it's 99% mental,
Mm-hmm.
because it hurts to go 100 miles, and everybody's going to say that. Even the fast guys, like people that I think the winner was almost 22 hours, so like 21 hours and
Okay.
something, and I did it in 30 and a half. And so, I mean, even the fast guys, obviously it hurts, you know, but I just think that what I got out of it was you can be in like such a rut and just dig yourself out of it. And it's all just a shift in perspective, you know,
Yeah.
and that I can use that in life anytime, you know, and it was so cool, like inspiring for myself just to see, like, cause you hear that cliche all the time, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, it's 99% mental. Like yeah, like I put it to work. Like
Right.
I got to personally witness it, like in myself. Like it's just a change in mindset, and if you can just kind of tweak a little something, like you can go. Like I promise you, you can keep going. And yeah, it was inspiring. It was, and I don't want to like speak for everybody else, but like what I wanted out of that was people that were spectating it to see, like, if he could do that, then I can do that, you know. And it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be 100 miles, but like I want them to go home and be like, dude, I witnessed this guy like suffering, like was gonna quit, was in the dirt sleeping and stuff, to be like, if he can do that, then I can get through my trouble too.
100%. What was it like when you were able to see like the finish line, when you were kind of
Yeah,
coasting in? Walk
I
me
mean,
through.
the whole time when I was running with Flan, was the pacer's name. I just kept saying, I just can't wait to get to the finish line. And a part of that was mile 97 or something.
Mm-hmm.
I actually like turned, so I planted and turned my foot, and I could feel like a rip in my left like small toe, and it felt like just pins and needles stabbing into my toe, and it hurt like bad, the
Mm-hmm.
worst pain of the whole race. And I kept telling her, like, there's something wrong with my toe right now. And she kept asking, you want to stop? And I was like, no, I'm not going to stop. Like, we're 3 miles from the finish, and there's people coming for us behind us. Like, let's just keep going. And I kept telling her, like, what phrase did I use? It was that's a finish line problem or something, or that's a 15-minute problem from now, not a now problem.
Yeah.
And I just had to keep telling myself that, like, that's a future problem to worry about. Like I can worry, my toe's not gonna fall off. I know it's still there. It's
Right.
gonna be sore, but yeah. So I got to the finish line finally, and I like limping it out. Finally got to it, and I kind of forgot about my toe hurting. And I finally sat down. I took my shoes off, and then I was like, oh yeah, I want to check out what happened to this. And it actually turned out I took my sock off, and I taped my toes with Lecky tape. It's like this medical tape. It's actually the first time I've ever used that. I usually use KT tape,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just like to prevent blisters and rubbing and whatnot. And that super sticky tape, when I planted, it was stuck to my sock, and I already had a blister on my toes underneath it, and it pulled and just tore the whole first layer of my skin off. And so when I pulled it off, like my whole nail bed and everything came off with it. And so like I could swear you could see my bone like underneath my toenail there, and it was so painful. But yeah, I think the finish line, like when I reflect back on it, like the finish line was cool, but like that wasn't really like the cool part. Like finish, I knew at that turnaround point, I knew I was gonna finish. So I think just like the whole journey going through the run, you know, being out there for 30 and a half hours, that's a long time, you know.
Yeah.
And running off of 5 hours of sleep on a Friday night, and then going all the way till Sunday night, you know. So yeah, and all the training that went into it, you know, like I always said, it's not about the finish line, it's about the journey. And I mean, I was running in the dark and the cold. It was snowing here in Montana, and like all for that moment. You know, like I knew at some point I was going to hit adversity and like just have to reflect back on like all the preparation that it took to get to that point. And so the finish line was cool. Like obviously it's nice to sit down, but yeah, I definitely think the journey is the coolest part of it. So
That's so cool to hear that keeps on coming back over
yeah,
and over and over again.
And so honestly, like, so after I ran my first 100-miler, I was like, I'm not doing this again. Like, I'm gonna step back from this for a while. But this one, like, I was not satisfied. Like, I finished, and obviously, I didn't do as well as as I thought I would, just because of that whole mental stint. And I think honestly, it was because I knew that was all mental. Like, I knew like physically, I was prepared for it. So like, if I could just like change that mindset in the middle of the race, then I knew I could have finished that faster. And so I kind of took that away from that and was not satisfied. Like I was like chomping at the bit to get. If I could have signed up for another one and done it the next week, I probably would have.
Crazy.
To be honest with you, like it would have sucked. You know, I would have been awful. But like, yeah, it didn't leave a bad taste in my mouth at all. It's just kind of like honestly lit a spark under me and like, let's figure this out because I know it's mental. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was the whole point of running a 50K yesterday. It was only 6 weeks after that 100-miler, and it was honestly just to kind of like test the mental training of it. Really, like it's 32 miles, which is a lot shorter than 100, but it's still 32 miles.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's it was still tough, and like I said from the get go, it was like this is not going to be a good day, you know. But I just kept reflecting back at that experience in that 100-miler. Like I know this is mental. Like it's all I can get through this. Like just keep pushing.
Yeah, you texted me yesterday when we were talking about how the race went. And you're like, yeah, man, it was just the mileage wasn't the same, but it was just kind of a drag and this and that. But after you've had that experience now with the 100-miler race, when you hit some of those difficult parts in the middle of the one that you did yesterday, how did you feel? And like, could you tell that there was a difference with like, okay, we're running into the same thing, but I know that I'm equipped for this now?
Yeah, I mean, like I tell a lot of people, it's all relative. So it's all like what you think it is. So like if you're new to running and you go to run 10 miles, that's like me going to run for 100 miles at this point, you know? And so it's as hard as you like set your mind to. Even to this day, like if I go, I'm going to go run 8 miles. When I get to miles 5.5, 6, it's like, this sucks. Where's my 8 miles? Like, can it like go by any faster, you know?
Yeah.
And so I always tell people that. And so yesterday, like I knew because I've experienced, that if I knew I was going to go run a 50K, I was going to be struggling at like miles 24 through 26 because I always do. And of course, I was struggling pretty much the whole time, but like not like really struggling.
Yeah.
And then right around that mark, like I knew here it is, And I think that's the coolest part of this sport. Like you physically or you mentally know that it's going to come. It's just like when. And it came, and I kind of knew what to do with it at this point, just because not just my hurt experience, but just at this point, just experience overall. And at that point, yeah, it's there's mental aspects of it, but then there's also like nutrition, or hydration. It was hot yesterday, way hotter than it has been, obviously coming out of winter. So pushing electrolytes, pushing hydration, calories. Maybe I'm like not as recovered as I thought I was from the 100-miler. So there's like a lot of variables in it, but yeah, I mean, I just knew like if I could suffer through that 100-miler at that point, I can do this 32 miles. So.
Right. There's something that I've been really fascinated with lately, and I don't know why it's been popping up. Maybe it's just the algorithm or whatever. But one of the things that I've been hearing about a lot lately is people getting to the pinnacle of whatever their thing is, whether it's the job that they wanted or they finally got married to the person, or they I think that the one that has the most data on is when people go and compete in the Olympics, because there's this huge buildup that you have in your mind this whole time, and then you go and you do the thing, and
generally for like seconds,
right?
It's not like they have a big long
for sure
event.
For sure. And so a lot of them report after competing in the Olympics, or even after winning the Olympics, a pretty common state of depression afterwards. And a lot of that comes from having this goal, like we've talked about, where it gets you out of bed in the morning. Sometimes it's like it's so attractive to you that you start to push away friends or you start to do whatever, all for this one thing. And so I'm curious for you, was completing that Hurt 100, did you have anything on the back end of that where it was like, I set out to do this, I did it, it was really hard, now what?
Yeah. I had heard that after I ran my first 50K.
Okay.
And from an experienced runner, she was like, actually told my mom. She didn't even tell me directly. She said, "Tell your son that he's going to get the runner's blues," was what we call it. And that's basically, like you said, a depression after your race. And so I definitely experienced that. And she's like, make sure he doesn't make any life decisions at least a week after the race.
Whoa.
Yeah, and so like me and actually another dude that ran his first 50K with me, I shared that information with him, and we were like, like she's on crack, you know, what she's talking about. But it's true. I mean, it's definitely like because you're like so set on chasing this goal, and then you got to the end line, it's like, well, now what, you know? And it's like, I think it's even more so when you kind of make it your life, you know, and like everybody external knows that that's what you're doing too. And so even then, you know, you're not going to get as much attention or whatever from training after it's done. You know, like, why would I follow you? Why would I follow your journey if your journey's done, kind of a thing? And I felt that after my first 50K, definitely felt it after my first 100, but I don't think that I don't know. I guess I never really thought of it after the hurt. I don't think it really hit. It was more of like a disappointment by comparing myself to others, like in the race, because like obviously an ultimate dream would be to be a full-time pro runner. Like that would be obviously checking the box, you know, but if I compared myself to those guys that were pros and this is what they do for a living, it was like me going to their race results and like comparing, okay, so if I went and ran this race, since I did this race slower than them, if I go and run this race as fast as they ran it, like maybe I could be as good as them, you know? So it's just like a lot of self-comparison. And I went through that. That was like 2 weeks of like misery for me after the race. And that was just recently, you know, just like comparing myself to the top elites. But you always forget that like I'm only 2.5 years into the sport. Those guys have like 15 plus years and they like grew up doing it. So it's what do they say, like comparison's the thief of joy? So it's that I was definitely like comparing myself, and it was stupid to do so, but I still do it. I am still guilty of it, but I think that's just kind of like a motivation for me, you know, is I might not be as good as them right now, but doesn't mean that, like, you know, just like anything, you can outwork anybody.
For sure.
As long as I just stay consistent and like, you know, have a goal and a dream and just keep chasing it, I think, who knows, you know, who knows? I could be sitting here as a sponsored athlete someday, or I could still be doing the same thing. So, and I'm satisfied either way. It's not like, I always think like, if I became a pro runner and like full-time sponsored, like, would there still be like as much of a chase and like as fun, you know, or would it feel like an obligation at that point? And I do think that it would feel like I'm more obligated to like perform well and train all the time and like be like something I might not be. But if I have like, you know, work full time and have my own career and then do this on the side, I think that you can have a pretty good balance doing that. And it gives you a better story too, you know, like, for sure, if I can do this full time working, like you pros, you better be good, right? You know?
Well, so you mentioned Cam Hanes at the very beginning of this, and you know, for the people who haven't followed him or his journey, that was one of the things that really attracted people to him at the beginning, was he held a full-time job while he was doing that. And I'm also a huge fan of Ned Brockman, who same kind of thing, right? He was working as an electrician. Yeah. And
he's a madman.
Yeah, for sure. I love that dude. But I'm curious for you is, you know, what kind of inspiration do you draw from seeing some of the biggest names in the sport having had a similar situation that you're in? And how do you look at a potential transition between like where you're at now, where you're working a full-time job and you're also pursuing this career in running?
Yeah, I think everybody's always like, well, they had something, you know, like they were born into it, or of course they have the genetics for it and whatnot. But those guys are like prime example of, no, they worked for it, you know, and like, yeah, they might have had genetics for running or whatnot, but everybody has genetics to do something, but you have to actually work at it, you know? And I think them working full time, it all changes. You know, like one's electrician. I'm not an electrician. I sit in an office. You know, so it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
what my capabilities are as far as training and working is a lot different than what an electrician training and working would be. But it's all like you have other obligations outside of running, you know, in other parts of your life. And like Cam Hanes, he had kids and he's married too. So like on top of that, you know, he was raising kids, running, training,
Mm-hmm.
and like super passionate about bow hunting. So he followed
Right.
that dream too. So it's like he's a madman, you know, like I think he put all that first, and then not technically his career first, because he wasn't chasing a career, you know, he was chasing his passion, but his career allowed him to do that. And I always think about that because I'm always like, I'm not very content, you know, like I'm always like, what's next? What's next? What's next? And so my whole family knows that, and they always call me out on it. And my brother, he was like, just think of it like as your career provides you the support and allows you to follow your dreams and live the life that you want to live. And so as nice as it would be to like go full-time running and, you know, like just go head first in that, I also have to like think back on like my family and like
Mm-hmm.
the family I'm going to have and going to raise, that what allows me the best opportunities to support them while supporting my side gig or my goals.
Right,
You know?
right.
And I can always do both. You know, you don't have to be a sponsored athlete to do this sport. Obviously just your ego wise, it'd be cool. And like to know that you're one of those guys, but it's not required that's not the ultimate goal. I guess the whole goal of this is to challenge myself, you know, and to inspire others to just, you know, try something new that maybe they're not comfortable with.
Right.
So.
When you say that potentially that like the big checkbox would be being able to be a runner full time and do all that
Mm-hmm.
sort of stuff, I think it's a beautiful thing that there's not necessarily a pressure attached to that, where it's
Yeah.
like that's the only thing, and if I don't do that, then I failed or something. I'm curious though, what does that picture look like for you for having to, or for like getting to that final thing? I'd imagine that it's like some kind of performance stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's also though, the world we live in today, there's a ton of like social media and a
Yeah.
lot of like media aspect to that. Do you feel any pressure to have to also become somebody who's like decent at social media and doing
Yeah.
videos and stuff in order to make that dream happen?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to answer that because you kind of like pick what route you can do both, or you can do one or the other kind of a thing. I would say like most of the elites aren't content creators. They probably like in their contracts, they're told they have to share content over their products and stuff, but that's not like their focus. They're obviously focused on running and that passion, and the social media following comes with it. But then there's the social media content creators that are doing that, and that's how they grew their following, grew their community, and then running's just part of it, I guess.
Right.
And I kind of lost perspective of that because when obviously before I learned about ultra running or running in general, my algorithm on Instagram was not running.
Right.
If I went on there now, like I'd see nothing but running and golden retrievers, because we
Right.
just got a golden retriever puppy. So
Nice.
so my algorithm is way different than what it was. And so I forget that like not everybody else has all this running content. Like yours probably doesn't have a bunch of running content. You know, yours is probably like personal development and business and growth and stuff. So I forget that there's a whole world outside of running out there. And so there are content creators that grew their community and grew their following and basically grew their self-business through content creating. And so I wouldn't say that's probably like not up my alley, I guess. I just don't have the experience. I wouldn't say the experience, because anybody can get the experience, but I guess like the drive to like really set things up and like shoot content, say. But I don't know. I think it'd be cool to have. My goal with it would be like to build a community as far as like all like-minded people, bringing them in and just like being able to teach each other things and just have a community of like the same interests and all over the world. You know, like you can do that locally. It's pretty easy just to throw a run club or something like that. But if you want to, I want to touch like people outside of, you know, small town Montana or the state of Montana. I think, you know, obviously internationally would be awesome if you could touch people from across the world. And that's the coolest part about the Hurt 100. I've never competed in races where I guess I have. There's been foreign people, but the Hurt 100, there was a lot of international runners there. And so like just having the opportunity to meet like other people. And actually this brings me to back to the Hurt. And when I was taking that dirt nap, apparently there was a runner that ran up and was like, what's he doing? And the medic team told me this after the race. And they're like, oh, he's taking a dirt nap. And she was like, what? I've never even heard of this. And so her and her pacer left. I didn't know this. And so I finally got up and, I did what I did. But then when I had my pacer and we were doing that final loop, I went running past this girl and her pacer, and she's like, oh, my God, is that you? Were you the one taking the dirt nap? And I was like, I took a dirt nap. I don't know. And I was like, why? And she's like, I've never seen that in my life. I was just amazed by that. I can't believe you're out here. And she actually finished right in front of me. So I almost caught up to her. My goal was to catch up to her.
Holy cow.
Because I passed her going down when she was coming up. But yeah, that was the coolest part. And she's from Japan or China or something. So,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, just like that, like going to these events, you can build a community, way more than you think you can. So, and that's kind of another goal of mine this year is to attend as many races as I can, but then also like grow, not necessarily a following, but like a community of whether they're from Montana, whether they're from Idaho, or Florida, or even internationally. I just think I'm not the only one with this story. So, may as well connect with other people that are similar and yeah, just kind of chat with them about what works for them, what doesn't work for them. And yeah.
What's that community piece like? Because as an individual sport, you can have lots of other people who have that same thing in common, but at the end of the day, you're out there pounding pavement or, running trails on your own. So, what is it like being a part of that community and fostering it? Because I think it's probably one of the most unique communities in the world. It takes a lot to be a part of it.
No, exactly. And I think when you talk to any ultra runner, they say like the best thing is about the community of it. And it's like so welcoming to everybody. Like road running is a little different just because it's so competitive and so fast. And it's like, oh, if you're not splitting 6-minute miles, like 6-minute pace, then
they're not one of us.
Exactly. Like it's so there's so many clicks in it. And trail running, it's like you could be out there for 36 hours, or you could be out there for 21. And like usually that dude that finished at 21 is helping out the 36-hour finisher.
That's
he's
huge.
coming back and he's helping out and supporting. And it's just like such a community vibe. And that's the thing I picked up on is like from my first event, it was like, oh, wow, like these guys are cool. Like you don't really think of it as competition. It's all just everybody's out here trying to accomplish the same thing. And yeah, I think, especially in the long distance runs, it's like especially it's harder for the dude that's out there for 36 hours than the dude that's out there for 21 hours. They're out there a long time. And it's usually like an older person. And surprisingly, I'm usually like one of the youngest ones at all these events. So there's not very many like 20-year-olds out there or like in their 20s. I would say probably average is like 40s, 50s.
Wow. Okay.
So it's like a lot of like midlife crisis people. That's what I always think. Like it's like people that didn't know what else to do, or they had like a former addiction, so they replaced one addiction with the other. But yeah, I think the community, it's special. Just like picking up that pacer, it's completely random. Like you go anywhere else, like you can't just like pick somebody up and go spend 6+ hours with them talking about nothing, And like yesterday, I was trying to talk to one of my buddies from Billings that runs ultras. I was trying to talk him to go down to that race, and he's like, "No, I already got like a group long run set up here in Billings," and it's just like small world. This one guy reached out to me, and he was like, "Hey, I just found out about this ultra running world. Like, I want to like pick your brain about it, and if you have any time, like just let me know. I'd love to chat with you." And so then like later on, he's like, "Hey, do you know so and so?" And I was actually texting so and so at the same time he was texting me, and he's like, "I'm meeting up with him to do a long run tomorrow." And I was like, "What?" Like, and so I text the other guy. I was like, "Hey, so you're meeting up with so and so to go run this long run?" And he's like, "Wow, word spreads fast." And he was like, "That's like the specialist part about this community is like it's just completely random people can meet up and just spend time together, and they're all doing the same thing, And it's cool. I mean, it's like if you wanted to become an ultra runner, it's like it's so accepting to like suck.
Right.
Really,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
to not know what you're doing. And it's like everybody's just like willing to help. And I think like with that guy that reached out to me, it's like he was like, "Oh, I don't want to take your time. I know you're busy with other priorities and stuff." I'm like, "No, like I reached out to so many resources just because I wanted to learn. You know, I wanted to know like what do you do? Like what even is this? You know?"
Yeah.
And so I was like, "I'm willing to talk anytime." Like I trust me, I'm way more passionate about this than most things in my life. So I would take the time to tell you, you know, and just share knowledge because it all varies, you know, per person. So
Absolutely.
and I think that, you know, so many people come to me just because, you know, it's in my small circle. They know that I'm doing this and they come to me like, "Hey, do you have advice on what shoes to wear, or what nutrition to use, or, you know, what sleep, what running schedule and stuff." And that just like varies so much, you know, it's like what works for me might not work for you. And it's all an experiment. Like
Mm-hmm.
the reason I know what works for me, and I'm still experimenting, but the reason I know is because I trial and error really, you know, and it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to do that if that didn't work, or
Yeah.
if that did work. And one thing I took when I first started was this guy, actually the guy that ran the race yesterday from Billings. He told me, he advised me to always like reflect on your race afterwards, like right afterwards, and like jot down some notes on like what went good, what didn't go good, and you'll lose sight of that if you don't. You know, like you want to have like that in moment feeling and those emotions and whatnot. And so I definitely took that away, and like I reflect back on the races often and just like try to say, okay, well, this didn't work, this worked. What would I change here? At what point? You know, and I think you could use that with anything. You know, one thing I did when I first started running, I thought I was gonna become like a journalist. So then
Funny.
when I started running, like I'd sit down and my phone, like I'd do it early in the morning. Like say I was on the track doing a speed workout.
Mm-hmm.
I'd watch the sun come up and like airplanes taking off the rims and like stars disappearing and stuff. And I would start writing about this. Like in my phone, I'd start like typing out like word, like minute by minute what happened, what I witnessed during my run and stuff. I didn't continue it, but I looking back at it, I wish I would have, you know,
Right.
just like during COVID, I wish I would have journaled during COVID, like just to know what that life was. Cause
Yeah.
you forget, you know, especially for me now, like I forget what it's like to start out running. It's like, when I remember my first 10-mile run, it sucked.
Mm-hmm.
And I still remember to this day, like jumping in an ice bath. Like I was so dead. But if I go to run 10 miles now, it's like, what's the big deal? You know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I wish I would have reflected more, and I wish I would have wrote down stuff more. But
I think it's really cool to not only just capture that moment, but also capture the feelings that you have around like what your dream is and what
Mhm.
your like how you're viewing the end outcome of something.
yeah,
I think it'd be really cool, especially too, like, you know, if the Hurt 100 or something like it crossed your mind as like as one of your goals at the very beginning when a 10-mile run was a beast, it'd be really cool to be able to reflect on that afterwards
Exactly.
and be like, I'm done. How did I see this moment before it happened?
Yeah.
What did I think it was going to feel like?
Yeah.
What was I struggling with at the time?
No, that's a great point, because I the Crazy Mountain 100 is what sparked my interest in this to begin with. And so I think for like the first, well, so when I started running was the Crazy 100 in 22, and then 23 I ran the Crazy 100. So
Okay.
it was only a year of running. And at that time, like the whole time, I was just like motivated. I want to finish the Crazy 100. Like that was all that was on my mind. So when I finished that, I think that's kind of when I went in my slump. Like, well, now what? Like, do I want to do this again? Like, I really want to suffer through that again and stuff. And so I didn't. I mean, I didn't sign up for anything. But then when the Hurt came up, the way to get into the Hurt is you have to apply for it, and then your name has to like a physical paper has to be pulled out of a drawing. And
Wow.
oh, there's only 130 slots, and it's like, oh, your name's drawn. And I found out about it the day of my wedding. So like, I think it was an hour before the ceremony or something.
Oh boy.
I got a text and it was like, did I just hear that right? And I was like, hear what? I didn't even remember I applied for it. And it was like, you just got selected for the Hurt. And I was like, no way. Like, so I jumped on my email and nothing was there. And later in the evening, I found out, I actually got an email and said like, you've been invited to participate or whatever. You had to like accept it or not. And so, yeah, that just kind of like sparked me. I was like, yeah, let's go. This is a new goal, you know? But I never like really had a goal. I just knew I was going to finish it. And so now, you know, like you said, looking back at it, I wish I would have known like what it felt like to like have that goal, because now I'm just going to ever chase like all my past experiences. But when
Yeah.
I started, I didn't have any past experience, you know?
Right.
So.
So now that you've completed a couple like big 100-mile races. You did the one that inspired you to get in the sport. You did one of the ones that's, I would imagine, just a very small percentage of ultra runners get to do. What are you excited about going forward, and kind of what's next as you look at?
Yeah, this year, I mean, like I said, it's going to be more of like a mental training and stuff. So one of the things that I just talked about that I didn't like doing that I've done over the last few weeks is like look up everybody's race finishes and times and whatnot. But something I always came across on a lot of the elites was that they always, like, early in their running career, they ran like several races back to back to back to back. Like, didn't take much rest time, I guess. And I don't know. It seemed like it was like there was so many people doing that. Whether that's right or wrong, who knows? But I've always heard, like, obviously have like A, B, and C race and like 3 races, and you recover and train and do blocks and stuff. But I think that this year I kind of decided I was going to try to run like a 50K every month, at least a 50K. But I'm going to try to stack as many races, like long runs, as I can, and just do like more mental training, really, and just like know at what point, at what point can I really push it, and what's actually sore, and whatnot. So I think in the long run, I think 5 years from now, I'll probably look back and go, oh, all of those stacks of races is to pay off for this.
Absolutely. So in some of our parting questions, this podcast has been one of the coolest things I've ever gotten to do, because I get a chance to reconnect with people like you who have, like, started doing some really cool stuff, and we didn't even, get into all the stuff that you've been able to accomplish in your professional life and all that too. But one of the things that I really like to focus on is, I think that there is a set of people in this world where they find whatever their thing is that, like, that gets them out of bed. And I think that there are some people that find that, and then they commit to it and they actually do it. And when you talk to those people, they've got a fire that lights in their eyes. Like, when you see it, you can see somebody light up. It seems like it's like a hot knife through butter, getting through that entire conversation and stuff. Like, we've been talking almost an hour 40, and it seems like it's quick. And along the lines of that, though, it's also really easy, just like you said in your story, to commit all the way to that one thing and put the blinders on and be like, I will sacrifice whatever I need to for this. I'll work 80-hour weeks. I'll do blah, 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 blah. So really with this podcast, I love being able to highlight the things that people have done, and, like, when they are chasing that passion, when they are lit up. But I also want to be able to bring out a little bit of, like, throughout that journey, when it's not just focused on the big race, on getting the mileage in, how do you stay present and enjoy some of the little moments along the way? And what are some of the things that allows you to, like, get to that space?
I think running these races, you often have times to kind of reflect back on that, because, like I said, I'm not very content. Like, I'm always looking forward to the next thing, and, like, I'll finish this race and what's next, like, where's the next race? But it's super important to, like, live in the present and, like, make sure that you're, like, enjoying the moment, because tomorrow's not guaranteed. And like I said before, I got injured 2 weeks before the hurt, and, like, I was not going to run the race. I thought that I was going to have to just drop it and give somebody else my entry. But I just, Trinity's like, well, you got into it. It's special. Like, we already have the tickets. Let's just go and just try it at least. And I remember I posted about it, and I got so many people saying, like, oh, you're, like, not like you're stupid for doing that, but, like, kind of like some backlash about it. And
about deciding to go anyways.
About deciding to go on an injury, and like, oh, like, long term, you're gonna regret that and whatnot. And I remember explicitly I said, tomorrow's not guaranteed, so I may as well live it, and attempt it, because there's so many people that said the same thing and they didn't make it, And so I think that kind of plays a role in being present, just because tomorrow's not guaranteed for anybody, and the next minute's not guaranteed for anybody, and so you often, like, it's so easy to, like, jump to the next one, and next one, and next day, and next training, but it's so easy to, like, miss the present. And so I always try to remind myself, like, just enjoy this. Like, this sucks right now, but enjoy it. Like, embrace the process, embrace the journey. And it's also, like, with my wife, like, it's hard. Like, it's hard for her to, like, give up a whole Saturday with me gone training, running, and being selfish, but without that support, like, it'd be pretty tough to make this work, but she's she's always reminded me like enjoy time with me, enjoy time with like me and the dog and your family and friends and whatnot, and stop worrying about running, especially those days when I'm super anxious about it. And like it's always like a good perspective to bring back to me, like just enjoy it, like just you can walk, like there's always another day to run or to train or do anything, you know, but enjoy the moment with me and like just soak it in, because who knows if either one of us will be here tomorrow. So
it's such an important thing to have those people in our lives.
Mhm.
And I feel every time that I've had the opportunity to have somebody who is really good at being present and about like giving me those reminders, it always feels like such a blessing. And
you hate it, but then you love it.
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
like, gosh, you're right, you know.
Yeah, because it feels like you got caught. It's like, yeah, you caught me doing the thing, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, shut up.
Yeah.
But okay, yeah, you know, you're probably right about that.
100%, man. Well, dude, I'm super glad we got a chance to do this.
Yeah, no,
we've been
you,
chatting about doing this for a long time now, so I'm
that's
glad it finally worked
I
out.
told Trinity, I was like, well, we got to get back tonight, but I've already bailed on once, so I better do this. Because I think I was living in Utah at the time when she was doing her rotations, so it would have been remote anyways. But yeah, no, I appreciate you having me, dude. I've always like dreamed of, I wouldn't say dreamed, I've always like had the thought of having my own podcast, but then it was always like, I didn't want it to just be like sole focused on running. And like, obviously on this conversation, it's been solely focused on running, but I have a life outside of running too, you know? Yeah. And like, I'm a licensed certified public accountant. Like I had to go through that whole process while I was running, and I've worked in that sector, and like I'm in finance and like all that. But I think just like being able to have like genuine conversation with people that are passionate about what they're doing, I think that would be cool. And that's exactly what you're doing, you know? So being able to come on and express it, I guess, you know, it's hard to talk to people when like they don't know, you know, nor do they care. Like most people, they ask about like, how's the running going? Like, it's just like a casual question. Like, how are you doing?
It's like the one, it's like a really easy,
that's all they know about
pick.
me kind of a thing, you know? And it's like, I'm always like, oh, it's good. Like, you know, I try to blow it off, cause like, it's not genuine. Like, you don't care. Like, why don't you ask me how my work's going, or my wife, or my life, you know, outside of running? So yeah, I definitely, I don't want people to take away that like, this is my sole focus in life, but it's something I'm passionate about. And yeah, I think maybe someday I'll get a podcast going, and you'll have to be an invite to it.
I would love to, man. Yeah, I think what I love about your story is whether it's running or whatever somebody's passion is, it's been really cool hearing your journey and like the different phase that you've had with it, where it was like, here's what it looks like to full commit to it. Here's what it looks like to take the foot off the gas and try to find the middle. So I think your story, regardless of the thing that somebody's passionate about, I think it adds a lot of perspective and a lot of motivation also for people to take whatever their thing is and start experimenting.
Exactly.
Just go for it and do the dang thing.
That's the thing. Like, that's the biggest thing, is just like, just go for it, you know? And how do I start? Just do it.
Yeah.
So it's cool. I like what you're doing here too. It's, I think your vision is a really good vision, especially for Billings. I feel like there's not much of you here. So
we're trying, man.
No, it's cool. It's cool to bring this presence. And then, do you like, what's your vision with this? Because when I told someone I was going to come on your podcast, they were like, "Well, where do you want to go with this? Like, what's his niche?"
Yeah. So my goal for the podcast is much like you said about running. Ideally, this would be the thing. Yeah. I started that media company about 3 years ago, and that's been really fun because I get to give in a lot of ways. Like, I get to help be, you know, a person that can help with people's businesses who I care about. I get to, you know, create cool opportunities for the people on my team and all that stuff. But what I really love about this podcast is I'm able to give people like you a platform who has a story that I'm inspired by, and allow us together in this conversation to give whoever listens to it a dose of that inspiration or a piece of perspective or a takeaway. And I think that what's really cool about that is like they then get to go build a really cool story and stuff. So really my goal with this is, like I said, my niche is those people who they have figured out what that thing is that's like setting them off. I don't care if it's knitting or running or boxing or whatever. But really my goal is to bring people who have committed their whole lives to whatever that thing was, and inspire the people that are either on that same path or who are like sitting with their feet in the running blocks being like, all right, we're about to start it. Cool. But yeah, I would love to, awesome. And really, like, you know, there's a lot of inspiring people in the world, but I also want to bring all of that stuff back to how can we chase the thing, but also be present at the same time?
Yep.
Because I've been, chasing the business thing for 3 years, and I was driven crazy by it for 10 years before that.
No, I remember. I remember in college, you were like always having like little side gigs.
All the stuff, man.
I still wear it, like the Peace, Love, Unity.
Oh,
like
thanks, bro.
I still wear that sweatshirt running.
That's
for some
badass,
reason.
dude.
I still have it.
Hell yeah, tag me in it next
Yeah,
time.
I will.
But yeah, I mean, that's just like, personally and selfishly in my story, I am somebody like you who I get caught so much in thinking about like, what's the next thing? And I'm so driven by this podcast and by some of the stuff that I'm doing that it's easy for me to skip out on taking the time to cook dinner with somebody or reading in the morning or appreciating the fact that it's 60 degrees outside and it was 22 below last week.
No kidding.
So, yeah, that's kind of the goal, man. Highlight people who are doing really cool shit and remind people that it's okay to like enjoy the time during the middle of the journey, not just at the finish line.
Yeah, no. I mean, advice I would give you is like the same advice you just brought up about like when I started my journey running, like write down things, like creating this podcast room, like there's feelings you have now that you're going to forget when you're 10 years down the road. So I think that's a good point. I should have done that, but now you can do it. That's your practice.
Thanks,
maybe you're already doing it. I don't know, but
it's one of those odd things that I keep on pushing off because I'm like, I want like a 3-hour block where I can really get into it. It's hard to find those. So, maybe this will be the glimpse of motivation that I need to finally get that together. Sweet, man. Well, where can people find you? How can they support you?
I'm not on like TikTok or YouTube or anything like that. Instagram, just my name _Wes or Wes _Harshbarger. Just Facebook, I guess I'm on there, but yeah, honestly, like I said, it's just like more, just want people, whether it's in person or over social media or whatever, just to be more connected, and in community and just reach out if you have questions. And if you're interested in the sport, like feel free, like anybody's welcome to do it. So yeah, Instagram is probably like the biggest platform that you would see me. Might make YouTube at some point, but I got to get like a camera to do that.
Yeah.
And like editing skills and stuff. I have no idea how to do any of that.
It's a whole new thing, man.
Yeah. So yeah, just Instagram and
Okay. Awesome. Well, thanks again for making the time. I know you got to get out of here and get back to Dillon. So
yeah, no, I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
All righty. Bye, everybody. Love you.